Hi, I'm Joanne Lee Cornish, body composition coach and slightly obsessed with being an outlier in midlife and beyond. I offer one-on-one coaching. I have 7 group coaching programs that I run throughout the year, and I also have a 10-month mentorship program. You can find out all about those and a lot more at my website, joannelee.com. Okay, let's get on with this podcast. Hey everybody, and welcome to Midlife Mayhem. Let's get to it. A few things to talk about today. I want to talk about energy drinks. I thought they were a thing of the past, or maybe they're just a thing of my past. And that's a topic that came up with one of my clients' friend. All my clients are friends. So I want to talk about that, especially with young adults. I also want to talk about reframing and recoupling stress. And I want to talk about training. You know, I have my Muscle Month program coming up, and I want to discuss one of the topics that I go into detail in that Muscle Month program. And that is, should women train like men or men train like women? The common consensus is muscle, but I strongly disagree, and I'll get onto that. But first of all, let's talk about energy drinks. And the thought of one literally makes me throw up in my mouth. I can't even imagine drinking one of those things. But I used to definitely have a few. I was, when I was training people in Gold's Gym Venice, my days would be very, very long and very, very physical. And there was definitely a time I would drink that. I don't even know what it was. I think it was just caffeine, but it was a diet green tea energy drink or something like that. Tasted terrible. I can actually taste it in my mouth right now as I'm talking about it. But then other people would drink Red Bull, never my thing, tastes gross. And that other one that was out at the time called Redline. Now I hope that is no longer available. I hadn't thought about it for a while, but it was in just a small little bottle, almost probably like 2 ounces, like those little energy shots. And that was insanely strong. I remember being really tired at work in the gym, and I finished my day and I wanted to train, and I was so tired. So I bought one of those things in the pro shop, and I just took a couple of sips. And I was so wired and so anxious that I couldn't actually train. I actually had to leave the gym. But that was a long time ago, and it was never really my thing. But I guess they are still pretty big with teenagers and people in their early 20s, which I find amazing because if you don't have energy in your early 20s, I don't know when you're going to have it. But maybe it's just that feeling of being wired and I don't know, highly motivated and and you haven't quite experienced the down effects and the crash that goes along with that. But apparently they are pretty popular. But the reason I'm talking about them today is because, something made my ears prick up. And this is when my lady told me that she'd been talking to a doctor and they're seeing a lot more gallbladder issues in young people. And, it's strongly related to the energy drinks. And, they're also seeing what looks like the irritation or damage to the gut lining. Um, so before I'm saying, don't get on me and saying, oh, energy drinks are poison. I personally think that they're pretty close to it. But I don't really want to do a fear-based health content here. That's not my thing. What I am trying to do here is just explain like actually what's in those drinks, why they hit the body the way they do, and what are other countries doing about them? Is this just the USA? Is this a global thing? Um, and like what I think is probably the bigger pattern behind what the doctors are noticing. Because here's the thing, energy drinks have gone from being maybe someone like me a once in a while little boost thing into for some people, a personality trait. And being older and somewhat wiser, we can see the danger of that. But when we're younger and a bit more invincible, maybe not. And when you get a teenager that's drinking something daily that was originally marketed as kind of like a high octane stimulant cocktail or something, it's worth asking, what is this doing inside your body long term? And, that's a question for us. I doubt many teenagers are having, contemplating that question. So the energy drinks, it's not, you can't really just point at the ingredients. It's the stack, let's say. So it's the combination of stimulants, acids, sweeteners, and any add-ons that sound pretty impressive on the label. It's also about, the dose. How many are people drinking? Is it a daily thing? Is a multiple daily thing? And the dose and like I said, the frequency. How often are people drinking these things? So the big analysis of energy drinks and energy shots, I found that caffeine was basically universal, and that's no surprise. What we'll often see though is the B vitamins, sugar, taurine, and a bunch of extras. Um, Caffeine, that would obviously be the headline ingredient. And as I sit here with a cold cup of coffee, I'm not going to hate on coffee. But I think there might be a thought that like energy drinks are just like coffee, and they're absolutely not. Because generally with a coffee, you kind of know what you're getting. You kind of know what the amount you're getting. You kind of know how you're going to feel. With energy drinks, caffeine can actually come from multiple places. So yes, it can come from caffeine itself. It can come from guarana, which looks really good on the label because, it doesn't say coffee. It can come from, plus there's other stimulants that effectively, good gracious, add to that wired effect. And it's that wired effect that a lot of the kids are liking. So you can upend the more stimulant impact than you think, because especially if somebody drinks coffee, has a pre-workout, and maybe you throw some ADHD meds on top of that, also very, very common. What about what's happening in Europe? So the European Food Safety Authority has guidance, often cited that children and adolescents should keep habitual caffeine intake to around 3 milligrams per kilo per day. You can tell it's European because they're working in kilos. So quick math there. They're saying that if you've got a teenager that's 50 kilos, that's about 110 pounds, that's about 150 milligrams per day. Well, one energy drink can hit that and go far beyond that. Add coffee, a pre-workout, and then like I wonder why they are up till 3 o'clock playing video games. Well, this certainly doesn't help because the point being there, maybe they're having an energy drink and a pre-workout. And the pre-workouts are also loaded. And yet the kids are thinking that they're separate, but it's just kind of this stacking, layering effect. And sleep, by the way, this isn't just rest. Sleep is a time when your gut and your immune system actually do the housekeeping. So we know we need sleep for growth. So if they're doing these pre-workouts for, hoping to get buff, but they're not sleeping because of them, that's kind of counterintuitive. But also, the gut and our immune system kind of do a lot of the cleanup work whilst we're sleeping. And if we're losing out on those hours or losing out on the quality of those hours, then that is going to show up. Then we've got the sugar or the sweeteners. If it's sugar based, you're going to get a glucose spike. And Starbucks has known this for a long, long time that you put sugar and caffeine together and, all bets are off. I mean, Coca-Cola, the same thing. So if it's a sugar-based drink, you're going to get a glucose spike, you're going to get insulin shooting up, definitely going to get that energy crash later. And, because of that insulin also and the sugar, blood sugar, you're going to get cravings that are going to creep in later on in the day. And now if this becomes daily, you've basically trained your body to chase stimulation and sweetness. And we also see that because the crash happens in the afternoon, so they down another energy drink. It's training your body for this stimulation because you're going between one extreme and the other, super wired, super tired. not a good cycle. Now, so the sugar with the caffeine is a naughty combo. But what about if it's zero sugar? So people will automatically assume that zero sugar is fine, but not necessarily. And I'm definitely not against sweeteners. I know they certainly don't work for some people. I don't have a problem. I'm not huge on them. I might now I'm trying to think of when I had a sweetener. I used to have more, but yeah, maybe I don't use them so much. I mean, I used to put them in my iced tea, but I can't remember the last time I did that. Um, no, no, maybe that splash of Diet Coke I have with my vodka. Maybe that's the level of my sweetness. Anyway, so but some sweeteners they have shown in the lab and experimental models to affect the tight junctions and intestinal barrier function. So I've just talked about this a lot ad nauseum, but when I'm talking about the tight junctions, I'm talking about the gut lining. So the gut lining should be tight, like cheesecloth. You imagine cheesecloth, you put water on it, not much gets through. But if you loosen up those fibers and it's more like fishnet stockings, then everything's going to pour through that material. And so when I talk about the tight junctions, I'm really kind of talking about a tight knit material that loosens up. And if you imagine that that's happening to your gut lining, and if sweeteners are actually affecting the tightness of that material, then that's affecting the intestinal barrier function. So it's not like one sip and your gut falls out or something, but this could definitely matter when it's frequent and especially if a person's overall diet is poor. If we've got a lot of processed foods going on there, throw in some energy drinks and you're going to get that gut lining that's going to be very weak, very permeable. Then what's going to happen is food and irritants are going to easily pass from the gut into the blood. And once they're in the blood, the immune system is like, what on earth is that? I'm going to go and attack it. So now you have this immune response. So you have this gut irritation, and you also have this immune response, which means you've got an inflammatory response, which means it's going to the liver, and onward and onward and onward. So there's that. The acids and the carbonation, and this is kind of where when the throats and the stomachs complain a little bit because energy drinks are often very acidic. That's rough on the teeth, yes, but it also can be rough on the upper GI tract in people who already have like acid reflux, irritation, or a sensitive gut. So again, if this is being coupled with processed food, high sugar food, high irritant food, then that's going to be a problem. But also, if you're drinking these fast on like an empty stomach, or maybe as a replacement for breakfast, you can see where this is going. That acidity is just leaking havoc with the upper GI tract. Taurine. Taurine is very popular. Common, misunderstood, worth discussing taurine here. So, taurine is in loads of these drinks. And taurine in itself, it's an amino acid like compound, and it's used in a lot of tissues, and it is definitely not automatically bad. But here's the point. We didn't evolve consuming high doses of isolated compounds daily, and there's some cutting edge science about taurine that I'll maybe expand it a little bit later because I don't really want to scare you about it because taurine itself is not the devil. But it's genuinely interesting and it changes how we should think about some things long term in high doses. So let me circle back around about taurine. I'll maybe put that a little earlier in my notes. And let's talk about the B vitamins. Well, the word vitamins, right, must be good for us. So this B vitamins must be good. But they, in mega doses, especially if they've got high doses of niacin in there. This one doesn't get quite enough attention. Some energy drinks contain very high levels of niacin, which is B3. Um, Again, niacin itself is not a problem. I mean, although if you've ever taken too much niacin, you know how that feels. It's very, very uncomfortable. But there are published case reports about acute hepatitis associated with heavy energy drink intake, with niacin commonly highlighted as a likely contributor. Again, it's not that one drink ruins your liver, but when people drink these daily, sometimes multiple times a day, I won't even say sometimes, like often multiple times a day, then what they're doing, and they're stacking it with other supplements, then that harmless vitamin story becomes a little less cute. So when the doctor was saying he's seeing a lot more gut lining damage, what is he actually observing there? Chronic irritation, reflux issues, inflammatory patterns, IBS-like symptoms, that can happen, weird food intolerance patterns, chronic diarrhea or constipation, or in young people, it's like, oh, my stomach's always off. I just feel sick. I don't feel well. This is what's going when you get that gut lining damage, when that cheesecloth changes to fishnet stockings, and anything can get through the gut lining and into the blood. These are the issues that are going to show up. It's like the weird food intolerance patterns. Well, of course, there's food intolerance because now the food isn't staying in your gut. It's traveling into the blood in a form that the body doesn't recognize. It's not meant to be there at that point. So you get this massive immune response, horrible IBS-like symptoms. The diarrhea, as your body doesn't like something, it pulls water back into the gut, and now we've got bathroom problems. And the medical literature does support the GI complaints with energy drink intake. The reflux, the discomfort, the nausea, the diarrhea. In all the reviews and clinical discussions, this does come up. But again, it might just be your teenager saying, oh, my stomach's upset, I don't feel well. This daily intake thing, this daily cocktail that's maybe happening several times a day. So energy drinks increase this sympathetic drive. So we've got our nervous system, we've got the sympathetic nervous system, we've got the parasympathetic nervous system, and the energy drinks are obviously triggering our sympathetic nervous system, our fight or flight tone. Well, the thing about the nervous system, well, let's talk about the digestive system. Your digestive system is run by the parasympathetic nervous system. And the sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight. Your parasympathetic nervous system is your calm, relaxed. You can't be triggering both at the same time. So if you are constantly triggering your sympathetic nervous system, you are not triggering your parasympathetic nervous system, which runs your digestive system. So if somebody is stressed, sleeping less, eating fast food, living on ultra-processed food, and then adding a stimulant, and then doing that every morning, maybe in the afternoon, then the gut is not going to interpret that as, hey, let's live a vital day, let's have a performance-driven day. The gut's going to interpret that as go fast, run, 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 run. Digestion can wait. Because if the sympathetic nervous system is being triggered, the parasympathetic nervous is not. So the digestive system is not being triggered. And constipation is a big part of that. I mean, besides from energy drinks, just stress alone triggers the sympathetic nervous system. So many people that are highly stressed have constipation, food sensitivities, because they're not triggering their parasympathetic nervous system. So if you've got this message that's saying, hey, digestion, you can wait, then it's not going to properly break down food. You're going to get more irritation, more acid reflux, more dysbiosis, more symptoms. And you're going to get a teenager or a young person that's saying, oh, my belly kind of hurts. Um, what about, I mean, it's also part of a pattern, isn't it? So the energy drinks often replace breakfast. They often replace hydration. The they can replace protein. They can definitely replace real food. They replace electrolytes. So now you've got someone that you're not just saying, hey, it's the energy drink itself, but it's the environment and the behaviors that it morphs into. So now you've got somebody running on stimulation and low on actual nourishment. Especially think of that hydration and electrolyte issue. So they're not getting energy, they're just kind of getting, I don't know, they're so wide, it's almost like temporary or borrowed electricity rather than energy. Now, the conversation originally came up when my lady was talking about the doctor had mentioned gallbladder issues, and that oh gosh, gallbladder, yeah, energy drinks. Oh yeah, like seeing it all the time, and it's not something that people really think about until it hurts, and the gallbladder will hurt. So a gallbladder issue is going to show up or can show up pain in the right upper abdomen, pain after fatty meals. And let's think about teenagers again, or early 20s, plenty of fatty meals. Nausea, bloating, sometimes pain in the shoulder. And we don't have to have this huge slew of data that confirms like energy drinks directly cause gallbladder disease, but we do have evidence that the diet pattern associated with them overlaps strongly with gallstone risk. So again, the lack of fiber, the processed food, the over processed food, and then so it's the diet pattern, and then you're throwing on lack of hydration, real hydration, and you know several energy drinks stimulating the person a day. So then it gets to be important. So think about the energy drinks again. They're often consumed by people that are on low fiber diets, ultra processed foods, inconsistent meals. They don't eat anything, then they eat a meal for five, dehydration, the high sugar, or even the irritants of the sweeteners. The metabolic issues start creeping in pretty early if we create this environment. So when the doctor's saying, "Hey, I'm seeing more gallbladder issues," my brain goes to, wow, yes, the association with the drink, but the drink is more a part of a lifestyle pattern, right? So the energy drinks act as like a gateway habit. You get tired, energy drink. You don't eat properly, energy drink. You don't sleep, energy drink. You crash, better have another energy drink. So now we've created that loop that pushes the body towards metabolic stress. So what's the rest of the world doing with this? This is where people can get defensive because they think a ban means something must be deadly, but not necessarily. So age restrictions usually mean that we're seeing enough population level problems that we're not comfortable marketing this as a normal thing for kids. Yeah. So in the UK, my motherland, the UK government announced plans to ban the sale of high caffeine energy drinks to under 16. They're framing this around health, sleep, and well-being. I don't know if that's gone through. I know there were plans for that, but that would be a shocker, huh? Now, the EU, in Europe, the European Parliament has summarized how the EU has labeling rules, but not specific restrictions, but they do have labeling rules. Poland went out on the ledge. Poland implemented restrictions that ban the sale of energy drinks with caffeine and taurine to minors starting in January the 1st, 2024. So they were ahead of the game. Other countries have similar age limit discussions or restrictions, usually discussions, but the point is the trend is going towards age restriction, not necessarily a complete ban. And I think I would go with that because, this adulting thing can be a pain in the butt, but it is adulting and we should be able to make our own decisions. But yes, age restriction, I'm for that. I don't know how you implement that. I don't know how you enforce that, but I'm all for that. So let me go back. I brought it in a little bit too early because I don't want anybody panicking about this, but I do think these kids need to start thinking about, Bit of smart adulting thing. So the taurine and leukemia biology. So in last year, it was only last year, 2025, a Nature paper reported that taurine in the bone marrow environment can support leukemia growth via taurine transporters. And blocking taurine transporter actually slowed disease in certain models. So let's be crystal clear about this. This doesn't mean that energy drinks cause leukemia. What it does mean is that we're learning that compounds like taurine aren't always as neutral as we thought. They can influence disease behaviors. So if somebody has blood cancer or a complex medical situation, then taurine is not harmless. That's not a statement that you can use casually because there is that link. Now, again, that is going to be dose dependent, but what if there is that scary Tina that's down in these 10 a day? I don't know. So taurine, yes, don't be scared off of it, not neutral, but in certain situations, it is not harmless, let's just say. We should be aware, let's keep it at that. There are now clinical research efforts looking at energy drinks and the gut microbiome. So that tells us that the question has moved from opinions to let's actually measure this. So that is going on. And again, I think what's going to happen there is it's going to be part of a diet behavior pattern rather than the drink itself. And it's definitely going to be linked to dose and frequency. So the real questions here, maybe the practical advice, because I'm certainly not here to lecture people on, leave them with anxiety after this podcast. But if somebody's drinking a lot of energy drinks daily, we've got to ask the question, why are you tired? And that can be a child, a young adult, or somebody, your own age. Why are you tired? Are you sleeping 6 hours and trying to live like you're sleeping nine? Are you under eating protein? That's a big one. Are you dehydrated? How many of those drinks are you drinking? Are you dehydrated? Are you stressed and wired but tired? We all know that feeling, wired but tired. How much caffeine are you drinking? Have you actually done the math on that? And again, now we've got to separate coffee from energy drinks, from pre-workouts, from fat burners, from maybe ADHD meds, like looking at the entirety, and that might be a surprise. And do you have any symptoms? Is your normal actually not normal? Acid reflux, is it just something you deal with? It's not normal. Loose stools, bloating, not normal. What can we do? Electrolytes for sure. If there's dehydration going on, then we've got the focus has got to be on water. And if electrolytes, and again, electrolytes, if they're, can often make people drink more water. So that's great. Actually have breakfast with protein. That would be a good start to the day. And if the issue is focus, then we've got to fix sleep. And that's the big elephant that's in the room, isn't it? The fixing sleep with young people. But don't care how you do it, but it has to be done. And it must start with stopping energy drinks. And how do you do that? Then, because then you take these energy drinks away from you, take the pre-workouts, and they're going to crash, and they're going to feel a bit depressed, and they're going to feel cranky. But then they're going to feel pretty good. So I don't know, maybe having the conversation and timing this with a time when they can actually stay in bed for a few days, maybe like spring break or something like that. There's some big red flags to look out for here. So if anybody has right upper abdominal pain after meals, if they have nausea that comes and go, that's not normal. That's not normal. Any pain in the back, anything like that. Food sensitivities, bloating after a meal. That's not normal. There's something going on. So energy drinks, they aren't some moral failure. You're not a bad person if you're drinking one. I think they can just sneak into somebody's life. And I think they can start with somebody just being tired. Oh, I'll just take one now and then it helps. And it just can creep up on somebody. But if you're using them daily, especially if the person's young, and if they're already dealing with gut symptoms, sleep issues, anxiety to depressed or, weird digestion, that's not normal. And just because you're living it every day still doesn't mean it's normal. It's your body saying, please stop negotiating with something that's making me feel worse. How often do we do that? How often do we actually, negotiate with something that's making us feel worse? If you're a parent listening to this and the goal isn't to shame your teen. The goal is to understand that this daily stimulant pattern does what it does and to help them build real energy with sleep, food, hydration, and movement. And I'm sure I'm speaking to the choir, and I'm sure many of you just rolled your eyes. But I think, like anything, it starts with education. It starts with maybe your teenager or young adult listening to this podcast. And this isn't shame. I totally understand how this can creep up on somebody. And, fighting between the two environments of being exhausted because of the lack of sleep and because of the crash, and, that instant gratification of, being wide awake and alert. So although these are young people, it doesn't mean, it doesn't mean they're not open to this information. Maybe point them to the information, especially if they've got gas, bloating, diarrhea, nausea. None of that is normal. I appreciate you might be dealing with layers of behavior, but energy drinks are not neutral. The words of B vitamins for energy, and oh, it's got a little bit of caffeine, a little bit of sugar, but what is it layered with? What behaviors, what food is it layered with? All right, I'm going to leave it there for the energy drinks. Something else I want to talk about, and I know these podcasts have got a bit longer, so I'm not, and I did not intend them to be that way. These are meant to be 20-minute podcasts. So there are two other things I wanted to talk about, but I'm just going to talk about one of them. And this is because my Muscle Month program is coming up. Today is the 30th of January. We start in 2 weeks. This is a very popular program. People love it. It usually comes around at the end of the year, and then people miss it. So I'm doing it at the beginning of the year, but I cannot promise it's going to be back. So the Muscle Month program, and I just want to illustrate one of the topics because thankfully muscle is really popular right now. Everybody wants it. Everyone wants to preserve it. But the vast majority of people, that's not going to happen. Plain and simple, it's not going to happen. It's just bizarre to me how if somebody wants to play golf, they go get golf lessons. If they want to play the piano, they get, piano lessons. They want to learn a second language, they get a coach. And yet when it comes to something that literally will change their life, like building muscle, they're like, oh, well, I'll just go to the gym, I'll get a membership, I'll move some weights, and I'll have a little bit of chicken to my, like, it won't work. It won't. This is a real skill. Building muscle is missed by so many people, even though they've got they're constantly training. And there's so many pathways and triggers with regards to building muscle. It's fascinating and it's not that complicated, but unless you're coached in it, you can hear the frustration in my sigh, can't you? It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work, guys. The gyms are full of people that never change. And that's pretty sad because this is fascinating. So one of the topics, anyway, it's coming up February 16th. It's a month long. There's 10 live coaching calls, full access to me, workouts, nutrition, and a whole content library with 50 plus pieces of content for you to work your way through over, you have access for 365 days. Now, One of the things that's discussed, and I'm going to touch on it here, but women versus men. And one thing I'll hear is like, well, muscle is muscle. You just train it. Same thing. No different. Muscle doesn't know what gender you are, what sex you are. I would strongly disagree with that. Obviously, I've been training men and women for over 30 years. And now, some men I train more like women, some women I train more like men. But that really depends on where I'm meeting them. So here's the thing, and this isn't going to make complete sense, and it's not meant to, because that's why you should do muscle month. But there are two types of muscle. Well, there's more than two, but we'll simplify it. Two types of muscle fibers: fast twitch muscle fibers and slow twitch muscle fibers. Slow twitch muscle fibers don't really grow much. They don't really hypertrophy, and women have more of them. One of the reasons why women can train, get real strong, but most women don't gain much muscle. They're more limited. Guys, fast twitch muscle. I mean, we all have slow and fast twitch muscle fibers, but women can have more of the slow twitch. So you'll get a lady that's crazy, crazy strong, and she weighs a buck 15. Then you've got guys. Guys, again, it depends on body types, but guys have more fast twitch muscle fibers. It is the fast twitch muscle fibers which can grow, hypertrophy, get bigger and denser. Now, those two muscle fibers will dictate if you're a hard gainer, if you gain muscle easily. But with regards to training people, men and women, what that means is with men, I train them slower. So I'm more going to do straight sets. I might do supersets, but their muscles, because of the muscle fibers, are very sensitive to fatigue. Women, on the other hand, with more slow twitch muscle fibers, their muscles reoxygenate very quickly. I can train them. I can do more circuit training with them. I can get like 3 or 4 exercises in a row and keep them going pretty quick. And they don't lose much strength and they can keep going because they have more of the slow twitch muscle fibers. If I train a guy the same way, generally that's not going to be the best way to train them because the muscle's going to fatigue very quickly. It's not going to recover as well. What's going to happen there is I'm going to do a quick superset, and when I come back to the first exercise again, their strength might have decreased by 10-15%, maybe up to 30%, because their muscles are much more sensitive to fatigue. So I can use more power with the guys, but I might have to slow things down and get the intensity through time under tension. The ladies, I can take them on mini circuits. I don't want to do circuit training, but mini circuits, but I can have them going between exercises and they don't really lose much strength in between sets because the slow twitch muscle fibers are fatigue resistant. So this is a big part of training men and women differently. Now, I can train men and women together and I can get certain guys in. And because of their body type, maybe they're a bit more ectomorph, or they're just very conditioned with endurance activities and things like this. And I can train them pretty fast. But that's somewhat the exception to the rule. And for me, when I'm training my clients, I want them to have the best results that they can have. So I'm not going to train somebody in a fashion that is not going to be optimal for them. I'm going to train them in a fashion that actually works for them. So if I get, a big muscular guy to come in and train, I'm not going to train him like his wife. Yeah. Now I can train him at the same time because I'm a very good trainer. That's all right. I can train him at the same time. I can have 2 workouts going on at the same time. No problem. Do it all the time. But I'm looking at the person. I'm not going to train him the same. If I train him like his wife, he's not going to get a good result. If I train her like him, for one, she's going to be a bit bored and it's not going to work. She doesn't have much power because she's got more of the slow twitch muscle fibers. He has more power with the fast twitch muscle fibers, but she's not sensitive to fatigue, but he is. So yeah, we can say muscle is muscle, but that isn't actually accurate. One of the reasons it's not accurate because of the different type of muscle fibers. Now, the interesting thing about that, which is actually pretty cool and I love, is that left to their own devices, men and women kind of migrate to the form of training that's actually best for them. So women will migrate to training and doing several exercises back to back. They'll just go towards that, and that is kind of good for them. The guys will migrate towards straight sets, maybe a superset, but more time in between sets, big power moves. So it's interesting how instinctively they will migrate into their own type of training patterns and behaviors. But when they then get forced or influenced or mistakenly guided into like, oh, girls, you've got to train like a guy and you're going to do this set of bench and then you're going to sit there for 2 minutes and then you're going to do it again. And the girl's like, this isn't really fun. I'm kind of bored. And I'd be like, you don't have to train like that. You don't, I can train you completely different. Or vice versa, a guy comes in, it's like, hey, we're going to do, 4 exercises here and back to back and off you go. And he's like, this isn't fun. And it's not the best way to train him either. So as an experienced coach, I don't have to have this conversation. I can tell immediately when I work with somebody. But no, that answer, oh, muscle is muscle, and yeah, men and women should train the same. I would actually disagree with that. That is one nugget out of, good gracious, so many that are coming up in Muscle Month. But muscle is a skill. It does not happen. There's no such thing as accidental muscle. You don't go to the gym and do a few sets and 4 sets of 12 and build muscle. It will not happen. It won't. So I strongly encourage, if that's even slightly interesting to you, to at least check out Muscle Month, what it's all about. It's a very, very fun program. Obviously, because I've been lifting weights my entire life, I'm in my element in that program. And my guarantee is that on completion of that program, you will know more about muscle building than 95% of personal trainers. And I do not mean to disparage trainers at all, because I say that it's a very accurate statement, but I say that because the majority of what I'm going to coach in this upcoming program, I did not get from 30 years of training certifications. I got this from self-study. So anyway, be your own boss, be your own advocate. Once you understand this, it's fascinating. And like anything, once you understand it, everything becomes, there becomes an ease and it becomes fun. So that's Muscle Month. Cannot promise I'm going to try and do it twice this year. I haven't managed to do it yet. But that's the reason I put it at the beginning of the year, because hopefully I can do it, but I don't know. Musclemonth.com. Check it out. We start I do hope you enjoyed this podcast. You can find me all over social. Just search my name, Joanne Lee Cornish. And of course, my website, joannelee.com. Be sure to check out what program I have got right now. I'm sure to be running something. And remember, you can always contact me, joanne@joannelee.com. Until next time.